two-time defending national champions out there, because there are pieces now being written about whether or not this is the case. And, quote, the evidence is mounting. Georgia among I love this headline. Georgia among most doubted championship programs in recent history by Mike Griffith of AJC or Dog Nation. And look, the sources here is like Kirk Herbstreit, who said, quote, just when you think Nick Saban and Alabama are done, they'll come back and win it all. Like, I think he was leaning towards picking Alabama to win it. David Pollock is saying the same sort of thing, and he's obviously damn good dog, and I love his analysis, and I'm going to really miss him on game day.
I think Reese Davis picked Michigan.
Yeah, well, and he can't do it because he's a Bama guy, so maybe he doesn't want to just go Bama over and over again, and maybe that's why he stayed away. But that all being the case, Matt Green, we're really just trying to stir something here, folks. Like, when this is popping up where it's like, I want you to find one college football writer, fan, analyst who's looking at the Dogs over the last 2 years and been like, wow, that team that beat the shit out of TCU 65-7 in the national championship game of the sport, like, they're all right. I don't know. I have my doubts about where this program's headed. I have my doubts when they have the number one overall recruiting class all over again. I have my doubts when they're putting third string linebackers in the NFL. Like, I have some doubts about where this program is really headed. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do a three-peat. Now, there's a difference to being like, this is unprecedented, which you already spoke to, of like a three-peat in college football is just preposterous. Like, it's just...
Shout out to the Golden Gophers back in the 30s.
Like, this is uncharted waters. So, yes, it's doubted in the sense that, like, they are now firmly against history. And this is it. Like, this feels like the last dance for Georgia, because next year the playoff goes to a 12-team format. There's going to be a lot more volatility. There's going to be a lot more parity, I think. You're going to have some upsets. And Georgia plays in the toughest conference in college football. So for the team to, and I think Josh Pate actually made this point, I agree with it, and I think it'll be something that hardcore fans will agree with, and I think you're probably on this. Whoever wins the SEC is probably the best team that year going forward. So when we expand to Oklahoma and Texas, so it's like, even if they lose, the team who wins the SEC championship game is actually who we should look at as the de facto best team in the country that year, even if they lose a dumb game in the playoffs, one of their 3 games, whatever. Like, that doesn't mean they weren't the best team, or the real national championship game is happening then, or the real national championship game one year might be in the Big Ten title game with Michigan and Ohio State, like, depending on how they're playing. And I think that's fair, because I think you will have some seasons now where the best team is not the national champion, and that's never been the case really for college football. It's always been the best team, generally speaking, is going to be the one standing tall at the end. So this feels like the last dance, where it's like, it's clean, it's a 14 playoff. The East is still very much Georgia's. It's a good schedule for them. The schedule gets significantly more difficult in 2024 for them. This feels like the last dance in a lot of ways for Georgia. Not in that the program's going away, but like the kind of path where if you're a Georgia fan, you're like, I don't know how you can pick against Georgia to not go back to back to back to back. And I think the only thing you can point to is, this is insane that people don't go back to back to back. Like, that just is not how this works.
Before I get into Georgia, just in terms of your playoff conversation, I definitely disagree with Josh Pate on that, which I disagree with Josh Pate on very few things, to be honest. But, like, we've seen these meaningless bowl games, quote unquote, like, as one team cares more than the other. If anything, we're going to see more SEC teams bringing their A game into the playoff, into a postseason game. We're going to see 4 or 5 teams potentially that are like, no, this game means a lot. And they're going to see actually how good the SEC is compared to these other conferences. And since when does anyone, like, you come out of a tournament is what it is. Like, the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL last year. They won the Super Bowl. Whatever year Carson Wentz got hurt, Nick Foles came in, Eagles are the best team in the NFL. They got the trophy. Like, there's no, sure, the Patriots, you went 17-0, 18-0, whatever it started that year. But the Giants won the Super Bowl. They're the best team in the NFL that year. Hands down. That's the discussion. The SEC championship will always mean something, you know? Like, Georgia won the SEC championship in 2005, the year where that great Vince Young versus USC game was. And we still hold that SEC championship proudly. It's just we didn't win the national championship that year. So I do disagree with that point. But going back to Georgia, I think I want to start by saying Georgia fans are new to this and they don't know how to act. Like that's we don't know how to have the conversation. We're one of the best teams out there. I feel like I can understand where this was coming from last year because it was but like everyone talked about, why is Stetson Bennett coming back to college? That obviously was the best it's ever going to get. Like he's the only player that doesn't improve with more reps. Like he was going to get worse in 2022 and he came back and Georgia got way better. You also heard a lot of national people say, yeah, but if Alabama's two best receivers were healthy, they would have won the national championship. So there was a lot of butting Georgia's 2021 championship. With what they did in 2022, it was basically a rebuilding year, honestly. Like, it's almost embarrassing. Like, it sounds like you're bragging to say that. But with what they lost defensively on just a historically great defense, it wasn't supposed to be a great defense again. And the fact that the defense was like a top 5 unit again in the country and the offense was just unstoppable most games, to be honest, like could basically score whenever they wanted to, could kind of milk the clock when they wanted to as well. Like, I think last year you definitely saw, I guess it just kind of depends on who are we talking about, right? Are we talking about the college football fan consensus that we feel like just vibes? Because I feel like vibes wise, it feels like people don't necessarily include Georgia automatically with like Alabama and Ohio State and some of those elite programs. But I mean, the NFL, they seem to be picking up on what Georgia's doing. Like, I feel like the people who know about college football can see like, yeah, this is like basically the best program in the country right now. If no less than like top 3, they're in that group, right? So it's one thing like Mike Griffith, I don't know, maybe insensitive, but like, vibes wise, I guess I can kind of see where he's coming from here. Like, one thing me and my brother have talked about before is, like you said, the Alabama bias. When we were talking about these the Pro Football Focus thing, there's just something about when Alabama's good, all of their starters are like, oh yeah, well, he's starting, he's probably first team SEC, right? Like Jamon Dumas Johnson is a guy that we've looked at. Like, this guy was a butt kiss finalist on the best team in the country last year as a redshirt freshman or redshirt sophomore last year. I can't remember. And this guy, like, I feel like if this guy was Alabama's middle linebacker, he would be like first team All-American, like no doubt. Like, and with Jamon Dumas Johnson, he's not really getting that preseason hype for a guy who's like basically the captain of the best defense in the country. So it's probably Georgia fans being a little sensitive, but I feel like I think the country really isn't ready for Georgia to be this good because there is this perception. It's still Nick Saban. It's still Alabama's world. Like, Georgia got a couple, but like Herb Street's saying, it's still Alabama's world. And I don't think people are ready for, like, no, Georgia actually just might be better now, and Alabama might not win another title. Like, we might have seen the end of the like truly like dominant era of Alabama football. Like, they could still be a really good team year in and year out, but they might not be that once elite, just, impregnable force that they once were.
Yeah, I mean, there's a strong possibility. I think even Bama fans would admit this, that Nick Saban's won his last title. He's 72. Yeah, he had a good class here, but like, I mean, you're going to go to a 12-team format after this, and it's only going to get harder. LSU and Georgia are right there. I think there's no doubt that Georgia's passed Bama as a program. I just think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get one more. And it doesn't matter. I mean, he's still going down as the best of all time, and they're still going to be in the hunt until he's gone. But, like, there's a strong possibility that he doesn't get another one. And it's hard to get even one. And it's going to be tough. And I think that would be, if I'm a Georgia fan, the thing that would actually annoy me, and I think there is validity to, is talking heads and folks who follow this program and know or follow this sport as well and as accurately as the Kirk Herbstreit and David Pollocks of the world do, is that, like, I get that you don't want to just say, like, the Dogs should be the favorites again, but, like, you saw what Alabama was last year. Like, yeah, they lost 2 games by a combined, 4 points or whatever, but, like, you saw that offense, and you know what Tommy Rees is bringing to the table. You know that the quarterback situation is very much in flux, that could be an easy disaster, that you know LSU is going to be really good. You know Georgia has kind of, like, you know in your heart of hearts that they're coming into the year better and that they should be better. And the fallback of, like, but it's Saban and it's back against the wall, it's like, it feels lazy, where it's like we have to move on. Like, at some point we have to go, maybe it's not coming. Maybe that's not the thing. So if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm like, what about this Alabama situation would scare you as a Georgia fan, and an SEC title situation? Like, I don't think there's anything that would scare you as a Georgia fan about Bama at this point.
Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to. Like, what Mike Griffith's, like, talking Georgia being the most doubted, that it's like they might be preseason number one. Like, we haven't even seen the polls come out yet. Like last year, they were a national champion that returned their starting quarterback. I mean, most people thought their starting quarterback still sucked, but they returned their starting quarterback and they were preseason number 3. So I think there's some validity when you talk last year, because, I mean, they were preseason number 3. They started 8-0, and then the playoff committee, the first playoff rankings ranked them number 2 or were they number 2 or the number 3? I think Ohio State was actually number 2, right? And it was number 1, and Tennessee was number 1, and Georgia was 3 in that very first playoff ranking, I want to say.
That sounds right.
So there was some doubt there too. So I can kind of see where it's coming from, but after the 65-7, I mean, you still heard a little chirping this year, like last year, like, if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get hurt, Ohio State could have won. Whatever, what ifs, woulda, coulda, shoulda, like that stuff happens.
Yeah.
I take more exception to that one, because Georgia did make a play that knocked Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the game, as opposed to Jameson Williams just. No one touched him. He tears his ACL. Like, that's just a bad luck thing. Not something that Georgia actually caused to happen. But not that they were trying to hurt Marvin Harrison Jr., but not any more than you are on every tackle. But I think after the 65-7, I mean, the biggest win in a history of a bowl game, I don't feel like there's really too many people doubting Georgia at this point. Maybe you're saying, and I think the original headline, maybe they changed the headline, because I feel like it said they're like the most doubted back-to-back champion of all time. So it's like, but they're the most doubted of like 6 teams that have done this. Like, I don't know, but yeah, it was. I think Mike Griffith might be a little sensitive, especially because we like the preseason hasn't even played out completely, so we could see Georgia being number 1 when week 1 starts.
Yeah, but we'll see. I think Georgia will be okay. Dawgs fans, calm it down. You're gonna be.
But
all right.
Keep that chip on your shoulder. They're saying we're going 7-5.
Oh my God, I just can't.
Whatever it takes.
Matt Green, main event here. We each did our top 25 college football coaches right now, and let us make this very clear. It's who we think are the 25 best college football coaches in the country right now, and we had a few different omissions here, and I think we should both just run through our 25 and where we had them, and then parse through what stood out here.